Welcome to GCSA TV Virtual Live, presented in partnership with Ryan Steiner, one of our GCSA TV live sponsors of the 2021 Virtual Golf Industry Show. Today I'm joined by Matt Shaffer, owner of Minimalistic Agronomic Techniques and one of my dear friends who I've known for close to 30 years. Matt, it's great to see you in my home state of Florida, now also your home state. How are you doing today?
Oh, outstanding. Thank you.
Well, today our topic is the importance of communication. So Matt, let's start with you. Why is communication so important in the turf industry?
Well, it's critical for you to be able to talk to your members and have them understand what you want to do. And the best way to do that is there's immediate and then there's the long game. And the immediate is, when you're having a problem, the best thing to do is right away communicate that issue to the membership and also tell them, what your course of action will be to remediate that problem. Now, in regards to like you doing a renovation or you want to do a big tree removal, it's good to lead up members in the importance of light and air movement on the golf course before you hit them with something that's as dramatic as removing, as many as probably 50 to 75% of their trees. Members have a real affinity with trees, so it's a lead up thing. So communication's a monstrously important part of your job, whether it's up, down, or sideways.
You said something that triggered a thought in me. You said the immediate. One thing I've always taught peers that ask my opinion or my staff is it's always important to be seen, as you're saying, the immediate, especially when things are wrong or bad. Often we tend to maybe want to hide or shy away, but you're saying when something's not quite right, that's when you need to be seen even more.
That's correct. It's important. First off, it's, I lived right out on the edge of the abyss the way I grew grass. So consequently, I was in trouble more times than not. But members really appreciated the fact that as soon as there was a difficulty, I was proactive instead of reactive. So, I would just go right to them and tell them. I would explain my philosophy and how I put playability first and aesthetics second. But consequently, we would lose some grass at times, particularly in the beginning when we were dealing with weaker turf. So, I mean, it's, so then I would hear out on the golf course where they would be playing with a guest or something. They said, "Oh, I see you have some brown grass." And they said, "Yep, that's just grass. It's having a hard time acclimating to the way Mr. Shaffer's growing grass." But over the course of a period of time, things will get better. And so that's when you really know you're being effective when the members talking to fellow members or to their guests and conveying what you said to them.
You and I have had a dear friend who's no longer with us, Dr. Dewich, and I've told this story many a times. And you're in talking with you right now, it brings it back in memory. My first day of turf school, I'll tell the short version, but Dr. Dewich walked in and drew a circle on the board. And in that circle, he put a triangle. And in that triangle, he wrote the word turf. And then in the rest of the circle, he wrote the word people. And he goes on to say, you've come here to learn how to be a top 100 golf course superintendent. But what we can teach you is 10% of your job. It's 90% people. Now, I think he had many meanings behind that, but I got to believe and confirm if you agree that people part involved communication.
Oh, absolutely. I've mentored a lot of people, and I used to tell them, look, if you're a great communicator, I can turn you into a great golf course superintendent. If you're a marginal communicator, then we're going to work on communications first and agronomics second, because you can be the greatest agronomist in the world, but if you're a poor communicator, you're going to really struggle in our industry. So, I can't overemphasize to anybody, and that doesn't mean that you're as chatty as me. I mean, I've had wonderful people work for me that were very, very stoic, but when they spoke, it was worth listening to. So you have to find communication techniques that serve your personality. You can't be who you aren't, but you have to be proactive. I can't overemphasize that. I mean, your ability to survive in this business is how you extricate yourself from being in trouble. I mean, that because we are in a risky business. We're risk managers. That's what we do. We work outside. We grow something for a living, and we grow a plant that doesn't necessarily want to be cut under a tenth of an inch. So consequently, then we deal with all sorts of varying challenges in regards to the weather. And these are all things you need to communicate to your members so they understand the trials and tribulations. Real quickly, though, I want to tell you, I started turf grass tours at Marion, and they didn't take off very quickly in the beginning. Now, you can play golf with the members, and that's a great thing, but that doesn't necessarily accomplish the same thing as a turf grass tour, because when you're on a turf grass tour, you're talking about turf grass. And the members are always, after every single one of those, in the beginning I had 3 a week, and in the end I had over 100 a week. So, but what people always said was, wow, I had no idea how many moving parts there were to your job. You make it look easy. Well, if you don't communicate, you don't share, you don't let them into your world, you have no chance, in my opinion.
Couldn't agree more, Matt. And you talked about your communication style, and we all have different ways of communicating. When you're dealing with different people in the golf industry at your facility, do you have different ways of communicating, such as your general manager? I mean, how is your relationship there and your communication style with your employer?
It's funny, I'm getting ready to write a little article about what do you do when you have a bad boss. And if you're in the business long enough, you'll have a bad boss. And certainly quitting isn't an option, and at least I'm not a quitter, never have been. In fact, when I got a bad boss, I actually got fired up because I was just determined to make him into a better boss. So, I think it's hard sometimes. A general manager's job's really, really difficult. I always used to say if I had to do their job, I'd be out of nice by noon. And so they have a hard job. So, you have to make sure that you're mindful of their schedule and find out, you have to be observant when they're the most receptive. And I think you have to be cognizant of their time because they have very little. So make sure you're concise in your delivery. Find out the best time to approach those people. Some people do better in the evening. Some are better in the morning. Some like to have lunch. So, it's up to you. You report to them. So it's up to you to be the person that gives the most, and they can take the most, in my opinion, with a general manager. Now, a golf pro, I always looked at a golf pro as on my plane. He and I are in it together. I'll build it and he'll make sure they come. So he and I are really, really close. And I've had some of the greatest friends in my life are golf professionals, and we share some of the same challenges, even though a lot of golf course superintendents don't think that's the truth. I'm telling you, put them in a really precarious position when you don't keep your golf pro informed, because he has one of two options. He can do his best with limited information, or he can come off looking like he's disconnected. So put yourself in his position, because he's your PR guy. If you really have him informed, and his skills, they are communicators. They're born to communicate. Man, when you win over the golf pro, you're about 2/3 of the way home free.
Well, it's great words, Matt. And your first part about talking to your general manager, your employer, I've read a lot of articles about managing up, and what you said is spot on. And you probably remember, as I do, when I got in this business over 30 years ago, you kind of had segments. You could be a GM and do your job, and be a golf pro and do your job, or a superintendent, and you didn't necessarily have to communicate. You were kind of on an island on your own. But that's different times, as you're describing. It's now about that team and communicating as a team. But speaking of team, you're only as good as the people that work for you, that you manage, that are part of your team. How have you found communicating with your teams through the years?
Well, I love to communicate. You can tell I got the gift of gab, obviously, and I love to mentor. And I really like finding, it's a great day when I see somebody conquer something that they didn't know how to do, and it could be very minor. Or when you go past and say, wow, there's a real technique to raking the bunker. Some people can rake a bunker and it looks terrible, and other people rake it and it's like, whoa, it looks like it's concrete. It's so perfect. So, I just love managing people. I like to bring a really diverse group of people. I've always been really soft on the military, primarily Marines.
Mm.
So, I've had a huge group of Marines, always that can-do attitude is really infectious with a bunch of young kids that don't have a clue how to work. Got to teach them how to pick up a shovel, for Pete's sake. So I don't know. I just liked that. I liked having retirees. I loved having girls. I liked having, young people, Marines. I mean, it was police officers, teachers, bringing all those people together from a diverse group of backgrounds and then molding them into a team and producing a product that's unbelievable on a daily basis for less money than they deserve to be paid and longer hours than anybody should have to work.
Boy, I couldn't agree more. And I think about a recent conversation I had with a couple of my staff members when I was explaining my feelings, and that's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And it's not about the dollar figure, as you just said. It's making them feel a part of a team, a part of a cause, and looking for the better good. So well, I really agree, Matt. And, we've both been in this business a long time, and we've seen the changes. Let's talk about the changes in communication from 30, 35 years ago to how we're communicating today as a professional in this industry.
Well, when I first got into business, I mean, I was born and raised in the mountains of southern Pennsylvania, and we came to work in Herman Survivors and blue jeans and flannel shirts. And then I remember Steve Mona took over the GCSAA, and we started to complain that we weren't making enough money. We were working hard and we weren't making enough money. And he said, well, you don't look the part, you don't sound the part, and you don't act the part. And I remember like, whoa, what the heck's the part? I'm a great grass grower. I do what they ask me. And they said, look at you. And I'm thinking, what do you mean, look at me? It brings me back to a really quick story. When I first started at Augusta National, I showed up wearing Wellingtons. That's what I wore. And Mr. Armstrong was the GM at Augusta, and he said, what are Wellingtons? I almost felt sorry for him that he didn't know what Wellingtons were. But about an hour later, down in the pro shop with Bob Klecky and Dave, I found out real quick that I would never wear Wellingtons again on the golf course. So I think, in the beginning, we weren't quite as polished. And I thank the GCSAA and Steve Mona and for doing that, and and then educating us. The education was just second to none, and it changed us. It took us from being really, really good grass growers to being polished professionals that can do a multitude of tasks: leadership, education, up, down, and sideways. And we're good agronomists and good stewards of the environment, good leaders in our community. We're better. We're better people because of his effort. I'd like to give a shout out to Steve on that. I really credit him for taking us into this era of professionalism.
That's awesome. Thanks, Matt. And, when I think about how communications change, I remember when I first got in the business, you had written newsletters. I mean, those are pretty much a thing of the past, but I remember preparing those through the years. And today I do a lot of teaching and educating on the use of social media, and we're communicating differently. But the important thing is that we're communicating and we're getting through to them how they want to get educated and communicated to. So, Matt, you and I could sit and talk about communication forever, but we are running out of time here. And I want to thank you for joining me. Thank everyone that's listening to this, and also thank our sponsors again, Ryan and Steiner, good companies that I'm sure you've used through the years as well. I know I've used both of them. So thank you, Ryan and Steiner. And again, Matt, thank you. And always good to see you, my friend.
Good seeing you. Thank you so much for having me.